In 1988, at 88 years old, Ruth Norman, Uriel, gave an interview with Dennis McNabb on the principles of the Unarius Academy of Science. Much of the footage has never been used in any video, and we'd love to share it with you. So here now is the raw footage of that interview with Uriel.
And I'm speaking especially this way for you, Dennis, because I understand that your dear father changed worlds just a couple of days ago.
Right.
And as soon as our class is over tonight, you're going up there to help your mother and your brothers so they don't enter into the pits of gloom and negation and self-pity. That's all. When they feel sorry, when they're so gloom and mourn people, all it is self-pity. And so I understand you're going up to help them. And so I was especially talking about this wonderful thing of transition, going into the next level for your benefit. But I understand you've had a beautiful experience with your father who's on the Astral. Would you want to tell my camera?
I'd love to. First of all, I'm looking forward to going back to see my family with just a sense of anticipation and great joy, because today especially I really had the sight of my father and where he is right now, and having made the transition to the inner worlds, letting go of all the frustrations of his earth life, and coming to me today with this thought of, I had no idea. I had no idea it was this wonderful. And I even said out loud, it's what I've been trying to tell you, but he knows now. And that was just the most beautiful, overwhelming feeling of love for my father. And I again said out loud, I love you, Dad. I'm so thrilled that you are, where you are, and that you're able to be awakened to your own spiritual understanding. And I know that he'll come back in a few years to come, prepared and ready to take on his own mission and overcome much of what he was unable to overcome in this last incarnation. So it was just the most incredible experience, Uriel, and I'm just so grateful, because I have this tape that I'm taking back that I'm going to be handing to my mother, and I keep thinking, one of the first things I'm going to say to her is, now are you ready for the good news? I was just like, do you want to know where he is and what's going on right now? And it's just, I can't wait to get back and let her know that, because I know she's aware enough of the principles to be completely open to it and to know the truth of that. And so it's going to be so meaningful for her.
So you see, it's true, very, very true. When people really begin to understand the science, the principle, their life changes completely. And I'm so glad that Denisius here was able to relate some of the principles to his father before he returned to Florida. I'm very glad for your mother, who's going to have your presence and your knowledge shared with her. So do you have some other questions you'd like to ask?
We were talking about past life therapy, and there are a lot of organizations and groups that are delving into past lives, but they use what they call past life regression. Is that something that Unarius teaches? What is the difference between?
No, we do not. We do not regress people into their past life. There is no hypnosis needed. It's very helpful and meaningful to the individual when his mind can hypnosis. I would not recommend hypnosis for anyone unless the one doing the hypnotizing will tell the individual afterwards what he has said, or listen or hear his tape. He will have no way of knowing anyway what was said. But the thing is, will he always tune back to the problem? Very often he doesn't tune to the problem. He will just tune into some past life where he has had a normal life of enjoyment or just a physical lifetime. The importance is to dig out the negations. Now, in our conscious mind, we have no way of knowing. The average person, if he was to ask or to believe that he'd ever been some kind of an individual who would torture or murder a person. Oh, who, me? No, never. I've been a good person, and we all like to believe we have been good people. But frankly, when we really get into past life therapy, we can forget about that we've been so perfect, because we will see ourselves. We will see what we have done. The pictures will come into our mind. The brothers will work with us, and we will find we have been into wars and famines and sickness and incurable diseases. Man on earth today, he has lived the many thousands of lifetimes. So you could just imagine how many hundreds of thousands of negations that he has incurred. And so now this is the opportunity from now on in this life and subsequent lives are the opportunities to get in and uproot those negations. Now it can be done very easily. I don't say quickly, because first we must understand the principles involved. But it can be done by study, sincere study, and effort and consciousness, knowing always that the brothers work with us. The higher brothers send their consciousness and their thoughts and their awareness down into our minds and help us. This is the most valuable, important, progressive, regenerative thing that man could do, is to become involved in ferreting out his past. It cannot be done rapidly. And yet, when one really opens himself up and says to himself, not necessarily anyone else, but I can look at any of the scenes of my past. I want to know what I have done so that I can be freed of it. And believe me, after one becomes so involved, and he does pull up these roots, some very long roots, his life changes. His life slowly but surely becomes much more positive, much more happy, much more free. Billy, my artist there, is a wonderful example of this. Billy used to be a very stern, serious woman, not happy at all, and full of pain. Her head was aching all the time. But now, I can say this has really only been in about the last 6-7 months since she's really gotten thoroughly involved in artwork and opening up to the brothers. She's entirely a different person. Her personality has changed completely. I could say this of most of the students. The only ones it doesn't happen to is those who don't study or don't take it seriously.
What one specific principle stands out as, if a person learned any one particular principle, what would help them the most in understanding themselves?
Well, the first thing he has to realize is that there's not only one life. We still hear people say, "I've got one life to live, so I might as well live it up." That is the biggest bunch of bunk that ever existed. But those people who say that, they only are really crying for help. It has taken man thousands and thousands of years to arrive at the point where he is. And so, one short lifetime, 60, 70, 80 years, one short lifetime availeth one but little, no matter if it is the most, until one gets into this personal study, this self-development, this self-attainment, this Unarius academy of understanding, this universal, interdimensional of understanding. That's what the Unarius is, universal, interdimensional understanding of science. Now, we have to understand and learn about the inner dimensions, the inner worlds, the higher worlds, where we evolve to after we complete this physical lifetime. See, this physical lifetime, as I've often said, availeth man but little. What is the average earth person? What does he accomplish? What does he lift for mankind in his 50, 60, 70 years? He eats, he sleeps, he works. Maybe he goes to his church on Sunday. He lives 1/3 of the time watching the television. So what benefit? What does he benefit himself? Very little, if anything. And sometimes, and it's sad to say, but sometimes he evolves and really degenerates his evolution. And when he does things that are really negative in a very evil way, negative and evil, he regresses his evolution and goes way back in his evolution, that he has to again dig out all that he's accumulated. So life must be, first of all, progressive. Man must feel that he is progressing from month to month, from week to week, from day to day. I'm sure my students, each one, feel as though they are making personal progress every day. Do you not? Yes. Good. And you should do. And you should do, and you will do more if you begin more and more to watch every hour, every moment, no matter what you're doing. Try to keep attuned to we brothers and be more and more aware of the inner and the higher, because it will help you in your evolution. You see, when we leave this physical body, when we discard this overcoat and toss it aside and live in our true self, our psychic anatomy, which our electric contact has never severed. We sever the physical, but not the psychic self. That we still maintain that spiritual contact. Then we progress and we advance to the point where our consciousness is, the level where our consciousness is at that time. So you see, it behooves us to gain all the understanding that we can and to move forward every day. For we never know when that beautiful moment, when the angels of the inner say, your cycle is concluded, come on with us now. We never know when that beautiful cycle will come about. There have been several students whose physical cycle was terminated while they were here, and for the most part, they were fully aware. I have a letter just the other day of a woman's daughter who's sending in a contribution because her mother just changed worlds, and she was saying how happy she was that her mother became involved in the teaching. She says, now I know she'll be taken to a proper school of learning, and which they are. When the individual moves on into the astral or even the super astral, then there are schools of learning where the individual is taken according to that which he knows or needs, you see. Everything is very scientific, and it's just like going to school here eternally, you know, not only the 8th grade and high school and college, but eternally. Man's mission, his job here on earth, his purpose, is to learn, is to gain greater wisdom, greater understanding. And if meanwhile he can have a little pleasure with it, good, well and good. But his main objective to live on earth is not to gain pleasure. It is to gain wisdom, to move himself forward.
Does a soul come into a lifetime, into a particular family? Is that a random kind of situation?
There's nothing random about the scientific way of life, Dennis. Nothing random at all. No, indeed. When one comes into a body, a family, in a physical body, that is done through harmonics or frequency relationship. There are no accidents. There are no perchance or accidents or happenstance, nothing. Everything evolves. Even the most minute animal, insect, animal, everything is grown and evolves through the principle of harmonics, frequency relationship. Think one is either drawn to one person or another. And man is usually drawn into a family with whom he has lived before. Very often, he has heavy karma to work out with that family, most often. And this is why we hear of so many separations, divorces, etc. And sometimes women will marry 4 and 5 times, and men too, because the fact that karma will appear, some negation from some one of their past lives where these two have been together and one or the other has caused them hard feelings or done something that caused them grief. So they return to try to make this right. And very often the same negation will be repeated, and the individual again hasn't accomplished anything. He's only regenerated the negation. So how does it benefit one anything by moving on to another husband or wife? Because there, that negative energy is oscillating in his psychic and in the psychic of the other individual, and in some manner and way, the situation will come up with another person. So one really doesn't gain by moving from one partner to the next, although you can't tell those people that.